Book of Enoch Introduction. A short account of the book. It is seldom that authors attain to the immortality which they hope for, and it is still more seldom that anonymous authors achieve this distinction. And yet it is just such a distinction that the authors of the Book of Enoch have achieved. That such should be ultimately his lot was the deep-rooted conviction of one of this literary circle. He looked forward, Civ. To Yah, to the time when his writings would be translated into various languages, and become to the righteous a cause of joy and uprightness and much wisdom. This hope was to a large degree realized in the centuries immediately preceding and following the Christian era, when the currency of these apocalyptic writings was very widespread, because they almost alone represented the advance of the higher theology in Judaism, which culminated in Christianity. But our book contained much of a questionable character, and from the 4th century of our era onward it fell into discredit, and under Theban of such authorities as Hilary, Jerome, and Augustine, it gradually passed out of circulation, and became lost to the knowledge of Western Christendom till over a century ago, when an Ethiopic version of the work was found in Abyssinia by Bruce, who brought home 3 MSS of it, from one of which Lawrence made the first modern translation of Enoch. It was not, however, till recent years that the Book of Enoch and similar works have begun to come into their own owing to their immeasurable value as being practically the only historical memorials of the religious development of Judaism from ACOB C. to Lu A.D., and particularly of the development of that side of Judaism to which historically Christendom in large measure owes its existence. The Book of Enoch is for the history of theological development the most important pseudepigrapha of the first 2 centuries B.C. Some of its authors, and there were many, belonged to the true succession of the prophets, and it was simply owing to the evil character of the period, in which their lot was cast, that these enthusiasts and mystics, exhibiting on occasions the inspiration of the OT prophets, were obliged to issue their works under the aegis of some ancient name. The law, which claimed to be the highest and final word from God, could tolerate no fresh message from God. And so, when men were moved by the Spirit of God to make known their visions relating to the past, the present, and the future, and to proclaim the higher ethical truths they had won, they could not do so openly, but were forced to resort to pseudonymous publication. To describe in short compass the Book of Enoch is impossible. It comes from many writers in almost as many periods. It touches upon every subject that could have arisen in the ancient schools of the prophets, but naturally it deals with these subjects in an advanced stage of development. Nearly every religious idea appears in a variety of forms, and, if these are studied in relation to their contexts and dates, we cannot fail to observe that in the age to which the Enoch literature belongs there is movement everywhere, and nowhere dogmatic fixity and finality. And though at times the movement may be reactionary, yet the general trend is onward and upward. In fact, the history of the development of the higher theology during the 2 centuries before the Christian era could not be written without the Book of Enoch. From what has been already said, it is clear that no unity of time, authorship, or teaching is to be looked for. Indeed, certain considerable portions of the book belonged originally not to the Enoch literature at all, but to an earlier work, i.e., the Book of Noah, which probably exhibited in some degree the syncretism of the work into which it was subsequently incorporated. This Book of Noah clearly embraced chapters 6 through 11, Liv. 7, 4, 3, 9, 969. 25, see the Archive. Nearly all the writers of the New Testament were familiar with it, and were more or less influenced by it in thought and diction. It is quoted as a genuine production of Enoch by St. Jude, and as scripture by St. Barnabas. The authors of the Book of Jubilees, the Apocalypse of Baruch, and for Ezra, laid it under contribution. With the earlier fathers and apologists it had all the weight of a canonical book. Portions have been preserved in Jubilees 7. 20-39, the date of this Noachic literature is at latest pre-Maccabean. As regards the Enoch CKTS, the oldest portions of the Dream VI Science. 12 to the power of x26, and probably XCII. I,_x7, i.e., the Apocalypse of Weeks. IEXIEXC, were in all probably written when Judas the Maccabee was still warring. 165 to 161 B.C., IXII 82 before IQ. The Parables, 3771, and the authors of all the sections point to the Chasids or their successors the Pharisees. Conflicting views are advanced on Messiah, the Messianic kingdom, the origin of sin, Sheol and the final judgment, the resurrection, and nature of the future life, heavenly bodies, angelology and demonology, and much space isolated to the calendar, a. Greek and their movements. Babylonian influences are manifest in the Book of Enoch, like the Book of Daniel. Written originally partly in Hebrew. From an Aramaic original as Derivi 36, and possibly. The rest of the book comes from a Hebrew original. To determine these questions categorically is a task of no little difficulty, seeing that for 4/5 of the text we have only a translation, and that such close affinities exist between Hebrew and the Ethiopic resemblances between the two languages are so great that frequent retranslation greatly into either is sufficient to explain corruptions in the former. Divergence of opinion on this question, but more so the opinion of the Church Fathers considerable time on the problem. The balance of evidence is its discovery in the Dead Sea Scroll in 1947. This discovery has frequently proved helpful in passages, and the recovery of the original in a multitude of cases.